Hello and welcome to the Temple Mount Podcast. My name is Shogun, and today we are doing a character creation brainstorming workshop. We're starting another in our series of server-based tabletop role-playing games or storytelling role-playing games. We've done some D&D in the past with different dungeon masters. We've done some World of Darkness, some Mage of the Ascension, some Vampire the Masquerade. All of them have been a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this one. Dude Missile has graciously agreed to be the dungeon master, which means I get to enjoy being a player, which I'm really excited about. And we've got a really good team of people here: Creatrix Crimson, 33 Dude, and Niram, as well as potentially others who will be players. So the goal for today is simply to freestyle, brainstorm our characters. Who are they? What are they? What are their skills? What are their motivations? What are their ambitions? What do they look like? What is their religion? What are their feelings? What is their morality? Anything whatsoever that you can think of, that's going to be the resource, the fuel, so to speak, that we're going to burn for the fire of the campaign, if that metaphor makes sense. So the more that you have a vivid and real and emotionally relevant character, the more fun it's going to be. So that being said, join us on the Temple Mount Discord server. Find our podcasts, including our past RPG games, available if you want to hear what that sounds like on Temple Mount official and roundtable podcasts on YouTube and BitChute. And of course, join us on the Temple Mount Discord server. But without further ado, thank you for agreeing to be the D&D master, the dungeon master, Dude Missile.
Oh, you're
Do you
welcome.
do you want to introduce us to this or?
Yeah, so the game we are playing in specific is called Genesis, Realms of Tyranoth, which is sort of it's a sort of setting agnostic game, but then they come out with like setting books to make it more specific. So this is a sort of swords and sorcery, wizards and castles kind of wizards, castles and dragons kind of setting, right? And you guys will presumably be a group of adventurers who somehow get pulled together and to do adventures and stuff. You know, um, really, I would say, um, I don't know how do you want to go about this, Shogun? I'm not quite
Well,
sure.
okay, so why don't I, because I've already created my character,
Oh,
right?
okay, yeah. If
I've
you
already,
wanna,
so I can walk you through what my character is, and then that'll give you some idea of what kind of thing that you might consider, right? So,
yeah,
so my character, again, you haven't met him yet. You'll meet him in the story, right? So we want to walk a line here where one thing to note is your character may have twists, they may have secrets, they may have skeletons in their closet, they may have a plot or an ambition that is not necessarily something that they're going to tell everybody on their first encounter with them. So during this character creation workshop, if you have something that you think would be cool to keep as a secret until later, such as a secret about your past or your whatever that the other players wouldn't know, feel free to just DM Dude Missile and tell him that, right? And consider what is apparent to everybody who meets you and what is something that you want them to have to figure out through the course of play, right? So if your character has certain things that are private or secret, or you want the other players to have to learn through the course of the game, don't talk about that now because that would be like a spoiler. Send it to Dude Missile in DMs and say, hey, secretly, nobody knows that my player is XYZ or my player's goal are XYZ. Only talk about here those things that are public, right? So my character is going to be a human, right? The races in the game in D&D are traditionally like human, elf, dwarf, gnome, half elf, half orc, and then there can be some other additional variations, but those are the traditional ones. My character is essentially a human, right? He was born a human, and he is a human. He's a human being. He's not an elf. He's not an orc. He's not a gnome. So my character's race is human. His class is fighter. Now, within the class of fighter, which is just like a martial combat expert who doesn't necessarily have supernatural or magical powers, his powers are physical in nature. He is, unsurprisingly, perhaps based on an Eastern concept of a fighter, which would be like a samurai. So he appears to the players as the samurai, wearing traditional samurai armor, wielding the traditional samurai weapons of the daisho, which is the swords of the samurai, which is the katana and the wakizashi. And in samurai culture, Bushido, that's considered the samurai's soul. So if he ever loses either of his swords, he's lost either half of or the entire of his soul. And his armor is very important to him, being probably passed down hereditarily, etc. And he adheres to a strict code of Bushido, which is like an honor code. And he is a samurai whose goal is to serve a shogun or a master as a bodyguard, etc. And so he was serving as a bodyguard, and his skills are going to be confined essentially to that. Now, there's aspects of his past and his history that may come up later, but a lot of his character trajectory has to do with honor and potentially having failed in some kind of thing that he was supposed to do in the past as regards to his honor. So a lot of his character trajectory is going to be based on the imperative to either restore his honor or make amends or fix something that he failed to do from the perspective of a samurai. And that's his obsession. That's his sole goal, is based on, he was dishonored in some way by failure, and his character trajectory is based on a redemption arc, which could manifest in different ways, how he actually works out that redemption arc. But that's his psychological, modus operandi, for lack of a better word. He has a past failure on his record. He's trying to restore his honor. He wears samurai armor. He wields a katana and a wakizashi, a short sword and a long sword, and he is a human fighter. So his race is human and his class is fighter. I mentioned to Dude Missile there may be a few small modifications that are not normal for just a regular human fighter, but for the most part, he doesn't have any supernatural powers. He doesn't have any magical spells. He is a samurai. He's a swords master, and that's his skill set. Now, he is always wearing his armor. He never takes it off, so nobody has ever seen his face or his appearance underneath his armor, because he doesn't remove it even when sleeping or anything else. And so that's the basic concept of my character. I would have to think of his name. I would probably just go with Shiryo or Shiryo. I might work on that, but that was the name I was using before. It's a Japanese name. Obviously, he's like an Eastern influenced character, and yeah, that's my character. That's the beginning of it. And I've sent some things to Dude in DMs about, more details about his background, his history, and etc. But that gives you an idea. So maybe go ahead.
No, finish what you're saying.
Well, I was just going to say, that being said, like, does anyone else feel that they're ready to lay out at least a template or a concept that they can build on?
I know Creatrix, you at least. Oh, go ahead, Egg-Based.
Yeah, sorry. So I, again, I'm not familiar with this format yet. So I downloaded all those books. Still need to do a bunch of reading.
Wait, hang on. Hey, just so we're clear, you do not need to read all of those books. You don't even need to read all of any of them, right? The only two you definitely need are the core rulebook and the one called Realms of Tyranoth. And then the rest are just there for additional character options, like different races and different, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. So now you've got me into this, and the core rulebook is 258 pages. So I'm probably just going to knock it out tonight and tomorrow morning, because I've got a snow day here. So.
If I could say one thing quickly, basically, like, we were talking about doing a Warhammer 40,000 based game, and you had a pretty vivid and detailed concept of like 1,000 Sun Sorcerer.
Yeah.
All of that is totally translatable into this. Like, you could take that exact character, all his motivations, everything, and just translate him into a wizard or a sorcerer in D&D.
Yeah, and so that was sort of the intention, is like I was basically going to flesh that out, and if there's anything that doesn't like mesh properly with this format, I'd just kind of like you guys to do like a yes and then I can sort of change around like what I'm doing there.
Like, what I'm saying is that concept totally works 100%.
Well, I think whereas in Warhammer, I think the Exalted Sorcerers are pretty fucking OP in Warhammer. So what I'd like to do instead is like kind of design some weaknesses and limitations as well, because just having a character with like unbridled power of Tzeentch is not really
Right.
compatible with a
What I would
role-playing
look
game. It's
at
not interesting, right?
look at that character as your end game goal, right? So you're going to start out at level 1. Your goal is to be that exalted sorcerer of Tzeentch by level 20, and the game will
Yeah,
be your story of how your character hopefully achieves those goals, right? But you're going to start
yeah.
out with that as just an aspirant, and then over time you're going to work to accomplish those things that you want to have rather than just starting with them.
All right. So just for background, I mean, in 40K, you have sorcerers of Tzeentch that like motivate the Rubricae, like the sort of trapped, prisoned Marines.
Mhm.
And then you have exalted sorcerers who are like specifically designated. They've got like these big silver towers in Tzeentch's realm. And the key there is that they become exalted by being favorable to Tzeentch. And as such, they become not only more mutated and further away from what you could call sanity, but they also become vastly more powerful. So, I mean, you think about an exalted sorcerer, he's motivated by primarily earning favor with Tzeentch. And that involves a bunch of like the way he treats his enemies, the way he treats his friends. And the limitation is, of course, that as I progress toward my goal of acquiring more power in, the sorcerer's realm, I also get further and further away from any sort of soul or humanity that might remain in my character.
Mhm.
So I think that's a really good one, right? And I'm sort of bound by the motivation because an exalted sorcerer isn't just going to put aside the favor of Tzeentch, because if he did, then he'd die, right? He'd just be
Right.
absorbed.
So
So I'm sort of limited by that, right?
what I would say is I think it's a fantastic character concept. It's kind of the opposite of my character concept, where my character has like a redemption arc and your character sort of has like a damnation arc, for lack of a better word. And I think that's really cool. The thing to remember is like sorcerer is a class in D&D. So to be a sorcerer of Tzeentch is totally a class. Now sorcerers and wizards are the two options for arcane magic. And then
Well,
there's
hang on. Let me step in. Let me step in here. So Shogun's saying D&D a lot. We aren't specifically playing D&D. We're playing that sort of game, but we're not specifically playing D&D. In this game that we're playing, there's magic basically breaks down into 5 different sort of categories. So you have like Arcana. This would be like your wizard, like studying the forces of magic type magic, right? Then you have Divine, which would be like your, I think part of me thinks Divine would actually, because your character's all about like serving this god, right? Even if it's like an evil god, like your character serves this higher power,
right.
right? And so that would be Divine type magic, which is like magic that it's like you're drawing on the power of a higher being. Then there's Primal, and Primal is like nature type magic, right? And
Druids.
druids, yeah. Whereas the other two are runes, which runes are like magic as a technology. So it's like it's not an innate ability you have. You can just know how to use these runes and you know how to manipulate them to create magical effects. And then there's verse, which would be like magic as an art. So if you're like a bard, you can like sing a magical song to like rile up your
Right.
allies to be stronger, that sort of thing. So
Uh,
I'd say
so
I'd say for your character, I'd be either looking at Arcana or Divine.
well, that's what I exactly. Thank you for explaining that. That's exactly what I was going to get into. So I would say the character you're looking at is either going to be a wizard or a sorcerer, which are two variations of arcane magic specialists, right? And either one of them works equally well, basically. The difference from my point of view is like a wizard develops their arcane powers through their own mental discipline and study and practice and research, whereas a sorcerer either derives their magical powers from some kind of inherent ability, like a bloodline or a draconic bloodline or a demonic bloodline or something, where they just have like a bloodline that gives them these natural powers, or alternatively, they're making some kind of pacts or compacts with demons or spirits in order to derive their power, which ties back into Warhammer 40,000. But the thing I wanted to point
Mhm.
out that is also what Dude Missile mentioned is your character concept or a Thousand Sons character kind of blurs the line because they're devoted to a god in the same way that a cleric would be, right? You're devoted to Tzeentch, and so that would traditionally mean you're a cleric who worships a particular god, and your powers come from that god. But in this case, it's kind of a hybrid where it's like, no, you are a wizard, you're a sorcerer, you have your own magical powers that are not coming necessarily from your god, but you are also devoted to that god. So I would kind of
So,
envision as like a wizard or a sorcerer who is religious
Mhm.
rather than being a cleric who is just being like a priest. Like if you're a word bearer, right? I would say you should play the word bearer as a cleric, right? But as a
Uh-huh.
Thousand Sons, I would say the Thousand Sons should be a sorcerer or a wizard who just is also devoted to Tzeentch, but whose magic is arcane but not divine, is how I would kind of
Yeah.
look at that.
So and I get it. I think sorcerer, it's the same name. It becomes the obvious choice. But I'd like to point out that the whole divine path doesn't really work because in my understanding of Thousand Sun sorcerers, they're not really interested in like liking Tzeentch. They're not like, oh, Tzeentch is amazing. They just know what rules they have to follow, and they're willing to ruthlessly further those causes in order to gain power for
Right.
themselves.
Which is
So
why,
it's
yeah,
definitely a sorcerer thing, you know?
yeah. So the only difference is if you're a sorcerer, and again, Dude can correct me if this isn't exactly how he's envisioning this setting, but in traditional D&D, you have two classes that are very similar, the sorcerer and the wizard. And I realize in this game setting there may be no actual rules difference between the two, but I still think it's an interesting storyline difference, right? So imagine on the one hand that your great great grandfather was a dragon or was a demon or was an angel, and because of that you have inherited some kind of divine bloodline through which you can just sort of instinctively or intuitively manifest these powers because you have some kind of juice from you're a Nephilim or you're a dragon blood or you're a demon blood or angel blood. Whereas a wizard is more like I went to the College of Magic and studied with the best wizards and learned the magical theories and did all the magical studies and practices. And I'm like, so it's the difference between like being like an academic who's like a PhD in magic is like a wizard, whereas a sorcerer is more like I am a natural prodigy who has a raw talent that I can just manifest without necessarily knowing all the proper spells and incantations. I can just like manifest my will because I have this like inherent power. You see
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
and so I do, and you know already, right, that sorcerers of the Thousand Suns are powerful psychers who have been involved with this particular chaos entity. And the way that I imagine that is basically that as you do things for Tzeentch, Tzeentch does things for you. And so you end up with further ability to manifest your will. It just becomes more and more corrupt. And then you can express that pretty easily once you get to the exalted point. But I think there's definitely like a chaos and mutations thing in there. But like Tzeentch is all about transmog, right? I mean, you basically like as you progress through the exaltations of Tzeentch, you become more and more warped and changed. And then even in the tabletop game, Tzeentchian sorcerers have an ability to just transmog enemies into like just pink and blue demons,
Right.
you know?
So Tzeentch, of course, is the Lord of Change, and so therefore, although he's also the Lord of Magic in general, he's specifically the Lord of Change. So out of all the different schools of magic that exist in D&D, there's one called transmutation. So it certainly makes sense to be a specialist or an expert in transmutation as the archetypical magical style of Tzeentch based on change. So I can change water into ice, I can change fire into water, I can change lead into gold, I can change people into frogs, right? But that could be a specialization. But I guess what I'm going to say to Dude is like Dude is not that familiar with 40k lore, and I think there's a lot of potential to take a 40k concept and put it into the D&D verse. But what I say to Dude is like what Eggbase is saying is like this kind of sorcery is a little bit different than sorcery and magic in traditional D&D in that it includes the concept of inherent corruption risk. Like every time you use these powers or do these things, you can become mutated, you can become corrupted, you can become more contaminated by chaos. But on the flip side, there's an additional aspect, which is that you're not just a sorcerer who's doing magic, you're also, in some sense, watched and empowered by this like god who can, on the one hand, reward or punish you, and can be pleased or displeased with you. So, what Eggbase, from my point of view, is envisioning here is sort of like a sorcerer cleric hybrid who
I
is like
see.
a sorcerer in class, but his relationship to his deity is like that a cleric would have to their deity. So in addition to his inherent sorcerer's abilities, you could have a dynamic where it's like Zinch is displeased with you, so this happens, or Zinch is pleased with you, so this happens, right?
Right.
If
But oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's totally doable. This game is pretty malleable.
Mhm.
So I would just need from Eggbase after he makes his character when he has some time. I need him to like give me a write up of like this Zinch god, right? Because I need to
Oh,
know
I have
like
no problem with that.
if I'm gonna like have to rule like, oh, you did this, so now Zinch is pleased, or you did that, and now Zinch is really pissed off at you. I need to know
Right.
what types of things Zinch
So,
would like and dislike.
I mean, I will give you that right up. I will spend a lot of time on this, especially knowing that 40K like is a rabbit hole that Shogun and I have basically set up fucking camp in, and that you really haven't been down it yet.
Yeah.
But if I could just give you like 15, 20 seconds as an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So the chaos is divided into four powers, and Zinch is like the Lord of Change and is specifically targeted towards magic. And the key to this is that because Zinch just likes watching things flip flop, uh, the people who become exalted sorcerers are those who not only commit like acts of chaos in his name, but also those who are ruthless in betrayal and subversion. So it's actually backwards from like a cleric perspective because negative acts against enemies, and especially like malicious and deceitful and acts that are like, changing things around, would be favorable. But like anything I did to help or assist like people on my team, or like any acts that I did that directly did good things for people, would actually be unfavorable to Zinch. So
Oh,
I'd imagine
Yeah.
that I would suffer like explicitly negative consequences for any sort of overt teamwork, you
But
know?
there's also
I
something that I'd
see.
like to say, which is that Tzeentch is called the Changer of Ways, right? And he's the architect of fates. And one of the things about him that's fundamental to his nature is that his motivations and his plans are unknowable because by mortals because they're so complex, right? So you could think that you're serving Tzeentch as honestly and sincerely as you can, but the problem is even if you're a devotee of Tzeentch, you can't understand Tzeentch's intentions. And so one of the things about Zinch is like he gives gives the greatest gifts, I would say, to his followers. He gives them
Mhm.
powerful magic powers, powerful sorceries, but he's also the most capricious, which means that like even if you were doing everything seemingly right, he could just be like, you know what, I'm gonna turn you into a fucking octopus, like just because it's like it's changed, like so
Just because
he's
it's
the
funny.
well, because it's funny or because it somehow serves his agenda that we can't possibly understand. So because Zinch is this god of change, like he's the most difficult to actually achieve the ultimate goal, which is worth keeping in mind. So any chaos follower, their ultimate goal is to achieve the status of demon prince, which means that if they dedicate enough actions and activities and blasphemies and heresies and whatever in the name of this god, they'll eventually be rewarded by ascension to demonhood. And so that actually has, I think, in D&D character stats that correspond to that. There's certain classes that can do something like that where they can ascend to like a new being. And so Demon Prince would be the goal of any aspirant of chaos, but 99% of people will fail of that goal and either die or be mutated into chaos spawns. But with Zinch is even higher because you might like for no reason understandable to you be punished by Zinch, or not even punished, but he's like, I've blessed you by turning you into a bunch of tentacles. Like, so that's the deal with Zinch. But at the same time, Zinch is like steroids for magic. So it's kind of like if you're a wizard, you have power 2. If you're a Zinchian wizard, you have power like 7. But the problem is
Mhm.
that a Zinchian wizard is not just a wizard, he's at the whims of this capricious god who cannot be understood.
So
Yeah, so if we
Um,
call like wizard magic and shit tobacco, then Zinchian magic is crystal meth.
oh, I see, I see. Okay.
Right. So
I
the
would,
sorry.
I would just like to maybe like we've given egg based a big chunk of time here.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
would like
yeah.
to,
Go ahead,
uh,
please.
uh,
I'll write it all up later.
yeah. So egg based, just so you know, don't feel obligated to. Here, I'm just gonna go through the table. Just to don't feel obligated to read that whole book. Um, I would say the stuff that's relevant to you is going to be the character creation chapter, which is chapter 2. There's obviously involved in that you might want to look through the list of skills and what they do as well as talents. But like in general, don't worry too much about that whole book, especially like the Game Master's toolkit. Like nothing in the Games Master's toolkit do you need to know.
Understood. So I
And
will read through it and I'll communicate with you about which parts are most important, and I'll take
yeah,
notes and I'll
yeah.
give you a write up. Okay?
The
And
only thing I go ahead.
wait, hang on. In general, like when we play, I'll teach you guys how the game works. It's not that complicated. Like we can kind of learn as we go. I've run it a lot. Like I played this game a lot. So,
Right. And so the only thing I'll say is it's worth giving some consideration to how your magic will function because you have the options ranging from a psionic. Now, a psionic in Warhammer 40,000 would be equivalent to like a Space Marine librarian, where they do not use demons or entities or magic. They're just using like Jedi mind tricks, like psychic powers that are inherent to them and their willpower, right? That's obviously not what you're going for because as a sorcerer, you're someone who's making compacts with spirits and bargains and, you know, taking that accelerated but more dangerous route to power, right? So I would say it's sorcerer is where I'm looking at that, but there is an element also of cleric or divine magic there in the sense that you might receive either a blessing or a curse for your god from your god. So it's kind of up to you and dude how you work that out. But in terms of race and class, right, I would say you're probably a human, right? You're not an elf, you're not a dwarf, you're not a gnome, you're not an orc, so you're probably a human sorcerer. That would be my guess, with an asterisk that you also have a relationship to a god, right? You're a sorcerer who has a relationship to a god, and that would be part of what plays into the game experience that you have.
there's
You're not just a sorcerer who is pursuing his own magical power. You're also a sorcerer who is in some way bound to service of Tzeentch, and from that you receive both benefits and consequences. Is how I would look at that.
I will say if you do read the magic skills, and you think none of them really fit, just let me know. I can make a custom skill for you. Um, there's some there's a couple things that if you can't there's a couple things like classes and stuff where if you can't find anything you like out of the pre-written one, just let me know and I can get one set up for you that would be more tailored
Yeah.
for what you're going for.
Hmm.
But I would like to uh just open up for does anybody else have sort of a somewhat of an idea that they would like to talk about?
Creatrix, I mean, you had an image. It seemed like you had some degree of a concept. Do you want to elaborate on it at all?
Yeah, I was wondering between like the powers that I've told you that, or like the
Yeah.
image that I had. You, what class, and do you have already that information? Or am I still coming up with that?
No, it's up for you to decide.
Yeah.
So, like we
Okay.
said, it's like from the images that you provided, right? Which I think is a great way if you're new to this to choose an artwork that you like, and you're like, oh, I want to be that person, and then look at that picture and think, well, who would that person be? Based on the ones that you provided, that character could have been a wizard, that character could have been a sorcerer, that character could have been a druid, or that character could have been a cleric. So what you have to think of is, are you a wizard? Are you a sorceress? Are you a cleric? Or are you a druid? So if you're a druid, it would be more like I communicate with the animals and the trees and the powers of nature and earth and air and water and fire and wind, right? That would be a druid. A wizard would be like, I know the 66 spells of Agjamat the Great, and I know the 99 secret words of the Tomb of Secret Knowledge. A sorcerer would be like, I have the blood of angels or demons or dragons running in my veins, so I can just naturally, through my passion and emotion, manifest outcomes. You could also be a psionic, which would be like, I have my third eye open. I'm a psychic. I just have like natural like telepathy and like I can bend spoons and read the future through psychic powers. But out of what I saw, you're looking at either a wizard sorceress, if you're like, I'm a wizard, I take certain crystals and potions on certain days of the year and certain phases of the moon, and I do certain things. Or it's like, I'm a priestess and I show up at this particular top of the mountain when the goddess of the moon sacred day is, and she gives me my magic. Or you're a druid, is it's like basically druid, cleric, or wizard. And the difference is just, do you have a secret book of magic spells? Do you communicate with the earth and the trees and the forest? Or are you empowered somehow by some kind of sacred blood or divine magic that flows through your veins? Or finally, are you a psychic who has their third eye open and has developed their mental powers to the extent that you're like near Neo in the Matrix and you can like bend spoons and shit? Because those are basically the four ways. And then the fifth way is like I sing special songs and I play special music and do special dances. I don't really see you as being a bard, but that would be like a
Yeah.
bard.
Yeah. So
Okay.
what do you have in mind for sort of your character now that Shogun's?
Like, if I could ask one further question, I know I'm talking about too much. Do you see your character as in relationship to a god or goddess with whom they have the relationship that like this goddess is my goddess and I am her priestess? Like, is that something that you relate to, or is that not really your concept?
Definitely the divine side of things, and be tied to virtues, like virtues walking, and have open psychic connection and conversation with all of my family members who are the other virtues, and they're not walking.
Wait, so you say that again, your family members' virtues. What are we?
Yeah, I would like to be able to have open psychic telecommunication with my family members off planet or in spirit who represent all of the virtues.
Oh, I see. So there's like compassion, like explain that to me in depth, please, if you could.
Okay.
Like,
Um, so I would like for, I think, my character to go by V. Her full name would be, I think, Vina Versa Virtuosa.
oh,
I'd like to go by V. And she,
Vina versa virtuoso, is that? Vina.
yeah, Vina, Veena, like the divine instrument.
Okay,
Versa.
versa, like a word or a song.
Yeah, or also meaning to have turned over.
Virtuosa.
And virtuosa.
Vina versa virtuosa. Very cool.
Yeah.
and
So,
she's got a
aga
connection to her family
so
members who are go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Yeah, so are you saying she's got like this tele telepathic communication to like her other family members? Are these like physical family members who are somewhere else, or are they like spirit family? Like,
Spirit divine, yeah.
Yeah,
okay,
so
and
I honestly see that as a little bit of a druid thing, right? If you have like a ancestor spirits and you're being guided by your ancestors, like to me that leans more towards the druid path,
I
personally.
mean, I think it's fine if she wants to play like sort of this sort of new age kind of perspective on the divine. Because I mean, even clerics in D&D, right? Like in Dungeons and Dragons, you've got like dozens of gods, right? So they're all clerics, but they're all like
Right.
their theology is all different. So if
But
you want to do like a divine type character, doesn't even necessarily have to be a priestess, but this character who's got a connection to the divine forces, I
Right.
think.
But what I'm saying is this, right? Like, is your character more connected to a specific god or goddess with whom they relate, right? So let's say you have a goddess called the Queen of Heaven. Let's call her Ishtar, right? And you're like, my character is a priestess of the Queen of Heaven, the divine feminine. That's what I represent. Then I would say you're a cleric. But if you say, I have a relationship with my ancestors and the spirits of my dead, ancestors that came before me, and I communicate with them, I would say that's more like druid, personally, just based on how I see it.
Okay, I think I
So-
like the sound of how the cleric sounds better.
Right.
think I'm
Like if
feeling
you're a
it.
cleric, the definition of a cleric is you are a human who has a relationship with a particular god. So you are a representative of that god, you are a missionary of that god, you are an emissary of that god or goddess. So it could be like I worship the goddess of the earth, or I worship Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, or I worship the goddess of love, or the goddess of nature, right? But what defines your character as a cleric is that you are a devotee of a particular divine being. Whereas if you're a druid, you're not necessarily a devotee of a particular divine being. You have like a supernatural connection with nature and the elements and the ancestors and the spirits. But if you're a cleric, you worship a god, right? And then if you're a magician or a sorcerer, you don't necessarily need to have any relationship to ancestors or gods. You just have magical powers based on your own secret arcane understanding. If that makes sense.
I think I like the cleric.
So if you like the cleric concept, the question is, who are you a cleric of? What is your god or goddess? What are their values? What are they, what are you supposed to do if you follow that god or goddess? Like, and is it a goddess of love? Is it a goddess of nature? Is it a goddess of war? Is it a goddess of or god of, fire?
And I can say Sophia and the divine feminine, and that is a good answer. That works.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be
that
great. You'd be like, I'm a cleric of Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. I'm her priestess.
Perfect.
Now, one question I have just jumping off from that is, do you picture your character as like part of some sort of holy order? Like, is she part of a group? Is she part of some sort of church, or is she sort of off on her own as her sort of self-taught disciple of Sophia? Like, how do you picture
I'm
it?
not sure.
Yeah, did
Well,
you have a teacher? Were you initiated? Were you part of a priestess line, or did you just privately come to follow this belief?
Okay. I would think that she has a long history of incarnations, lifetime after lifetime on the same path, and that would go back to at least mystery schools on this planet.
okay.
So maybe you're part of a female line of priestesses of Sophia who has been initiated into the mysteries of Sophia, the goddess of wisdom, and your powers derive from her and what her domains are. Because the different goddesses and gods have different domains, right? So your god might have the domain of fire, or the domain of death, or the domain of light, or the domain of whatever, storm or electricity. So your goddess would probably be the domain of wisdom or something like that, and then your powers would derive from that
Okay.
potentially.
Yeah. Wisdom sounds good. Light sounds good. Whatever you guys think is cohesive for my character.
Maybe you could think
Well,
of like the goddess of
what about-
wisdom and healing and light or something, and then you just be
Well,
covered.
it's not about what we think is, it's about what you want to play. What do you sort of what sort of like archetypical sort of symbols like speak to you, and that's what you should go with, right?
But you could more or less assume that, she can heal, she can create light, she can create food, she can create water, like all those benevolent things. But like, she's not
Banish bad spirits as
yeah,
well.
but she's not gonna be like cursing people or, smiting people. Like it's like, like just choosing your powers from the list of what spells you prepare based on what you want to do.
Okay. So from that, sorry, that the question that I needed to answer was which specifically?
Nothing really. It's just the concept that I get from what you're saying is you would be a cleric, you would be a priestess of Sophia. The domain of Sophia would be something along the lines of wisdom, light, and healing, or wisdom, light, and wisdom, light, and healing would be good. And so then your spells, quote unquote, that you choose would be like things pertaining to that. So you could potentially create light in the darkness, or you could
I
create.
have to step in here 1 sec.
Mhm.
So the magic in this game is sort of a free flow system, right? So it's like there's not specific spells. You sort of make your own spells based on like what would make sense for your theme of magic, essentially, right? So like Shogun said, like if you're using divine powers, you're not gonna like chuck a fireball at someone, but you could heal someone, or you could bring a light into existence, or you could like banish evil spirits, that sort of thing. But you're not gonna like chuck a fireball, right? And so don't worry when Shogun's talking about spell lists. I wouldn't worry about that. Think more about the theme of like your magic. What is she doing with her powers, right?
Okay.
But yeah, I remember just for as an example, when we were playing a similar game in the past, is like my character had the ability to like manifest objects. So like something that I did in the story is like I would manifest these like obsidian spikes. They were just like really sharp pieces of obsidian that I would just manifest out of nowhere using my magical powers. And I would just like skewer people with them. Like that's what my brain thought was like the most coherent, logical thing to do. But you see, like it just really comes down to your imagination. As long as you like kind of understand, like what's your character? What are they all about? What would they do in this situation?
Okay.
And it's
So,
kind of really open and free to choose whatever you want.
so I would like, if it is possible, for her to be able to give the perfect gift in every situation that would have the effect for the highest good, no matter how it looks when it's given. Think like, so I already talked to you, Dude Missile, about her being able to shift her expression of age at will. So if she needs to
Yeah.
go into a room as a small child, or she needs to go into a room as an old woman, and be able to offer the perfect gift in that situation and have it received.
Like
And
she gives them
the
something.
gift, yes, like think the old woman with the apple in Sleeping Beauty,
I feel
Oh,
I feel like what she's talking about, like, you know, the idea of like when you have like in a game, like a genie wish, and like when the genie wish happens, it gives you the exact thing you need at that moment.
well,
I
I was
think
whether
sort of
that's
I'm
kind of
thinking
what
it.
she's
helping them
saying.
or
Wait,
helping me.
hang on. What I was seeing, what I thought she meant was like, in a story, like the character's in trouble, and then like an old lady appears out of nowhere, and she's like, you've got important stuff to do. Here, take this, right? Like, is that sort of what you mean, or like a little child shows up and they're like, here, take this. Is that, am I getting that
Right.
right?
So that I can basically imbue whatever object I'm gifting to the person to have the effect that will help, what it is that I'm trying to achieve, but they will also accept it because it'll come across as like something very acceptable when a child hands you a drawing, right? Most people aren't going to say, no, kid, I'm not taking that. But like, oh, thank you, right? So I'm going to be able to offer that in that form, or also be an old woman if someone will listen to an old woman's advice at a time, be able to manifest an object that is magical and seems like a simple gift, maybe. And I've never played this before, so I'm not sure whether that's good or not, but that's what I have in my mind.
I think there's a
I mean,
certain
that
word for it when you shape shift into something temporarily. Isn't it called like a glimmer or
a glamour.
Glamour.
No,
it's called something
glamour.
like
No. So what a glamour is a glamour is basically like a type of magic that like a fantastical creature uses to hide their fantastical elements, right? Which is not really relevant here because this is a world where like, your neighbor is an elf, right? And your boss is a dwarf, right? So it's not really a need for glamours, but I think what Creatrix is talking about is she has this ability to shift her physical appearance of age, right? So that she can like fit into various scenarios, right? Like, am I getting that right?
Yeah,
it's
it'll always be me, like the female expression, that it would be as I was as a child or as I would be as an old woman, so that I can express through any point of age, so that I can best relate and accomplish whatever it is, depending on who I'm dealing with.
Yeah. Now, I will
And be able
say,
to, yeah,
in general,
ahead.
you should know that basically the way it works is you say you're going to do something like you guys are in a scenario that I've set up, and you say what you want to do, and basically if that thing is something simple or something that is not difficult or that there would be no consequences for failure. You just sort of do it. Whereas if something's like tough, like something like channeling magic, right, into a particular, I'd ask you to roll for it, right? And so you'd roll the dice, and the dice would tell us if you succeeded or not, basically.
We could do like a little practice example because she's never ever played a D&D game in her life, so she
Well,
just
like I
doesn't
said,
even
what-
understand the
well,
concept of games.
Well,
But like, what if there's like a bridge troll, right? Like, let's say you're walking up to like Dude Missile will do something like you're walking up to a bridge and you see that there is a troll in the shadows and he pops out, and then and he starts asking you a riddle. What do you do? And then it's like, okay, then you make a decision. Like, I'm going to like shapeshift into a child as I, and then I'm going to present to him, some sort of gift. Like you can kind of just do whatever you want. What we're doing is we're working together to tell a story, and then when you want to do something, you'll have to roll a dice to see how successful your choice is.
like you could be like, I'm going to attack the troll and kill it, or you could be like, I'm going to bargain with the troll, or I'm going to try to charm the troll, or I'm going to cast a spell of sleep on the troll so the troll falls asleep, or whatever. But yeah, if it comes to like, I'm going to try to lift 150 pounds, like you'll have to roll strength, and if you're not strong enough, you'll fail, and if you're strong enough, you'll succeed, or if you don't roll well, you'll fail. If you roll well, you'll succeed. But you'll have things that you're good at and things that you're bad at, and those stats will determine your success or failure on any relevant check.
The important thing I just brought it up to note is that, like, basically with anything, you're not going to succeed all the time. There's going to be times where, you try to do something and you fail, right? And as the game progresses, you will level up your character and they'll get better at doing those things, so that, like, things that might have been sort of a 50-50 chance at the start of the game might be like a 85% chance, whereas things that you couldn't even, you never would have accomplished early on, you'll actually be able to do. So it's like you progress. So that's just the important thing. Is I wanted to note that there is a chance that some things you will try to do will fail, and that's sort of what gives the story dynamism, right?
Okay, cool.
So we could definitely have you, like, your character, like, shape shift, or not, like age up and age down themselves for particular things that you're trying to do, but you would have to roll for that, because that's like a sort of difficult thing to achieve with magic, is this acceleration of time, right? You get what I'm saying?
Okay. So I would be like, we're at this bridge. So what I'm going to do is shift into a 4-year-old child, cry for my mommy who's on the other side of the bridge, and hope he lets me pass. Roll.
Yeah, and I would say roll your divine against
Yeah.
whatever difficulty, and if you get above that difficulty, you
Or
succeed.
if it was World of Darkness, you'd be rolling like probably charisma or manipulation or persuasion. Like there's multiple different skills you could use, right? You could be like, I'm trying to deceive the person, or you could be like, I'm trying to charm the person, or I'm trying to seduce the person, or I'm trying to threaten the person or intimidate the person. Like you could do all of those things, right? So I could be like, let me pass, or I'm going to cut your head off, and then I'd roll like intimidation, and if I succeed in intimidating the troll would be like, whoa, I don't get my head cut off, I'm going to let this guy go past. Or you could be like, I'm going to try and sweet talk the troll and be like, oh, you seem like such a nice troll, like surely you'll let me pass, I'm just an innocent little girl. And then you roll like charisma or persuasion or manipulation. But the point is, anything that you try to do, the DM is going to determine what stat is relevant to that. So picking up a heavy object is going to be strength. Getting poisoned and surviving the poison is going to be constitution. Solving a riddle is going to be intelligence, right? Charming somebody is going to be charisma. So generally speaking, there's going to be a stat that corresponds to any thing that you attempt to do.
Okay.
And you're gonna either succeed or fail based on a combination of how good you are at that thing. So if you have an intelligence 20 and the puzzle is solve a Rubik's cube, you're probably gonna solve that Rubik's cube. But even if you were dumb and you rolled 20s, you would still solve it, even though it was unlikely that you would do so. So I might have an intelligence of 1 and you might have an intelligence of 5. But if I roll 120 and you roll 5 ones, I'm gonna solve the Rubik's cube before you. but you're more likely to solve the Rubik's Cube before me because you have 5 times more dice to roll because you're 5 times smarter than me, for lack of a, just as an example. So does anybody else have a concept for the characters? Right now we've got Eggbase as the Zinchian sorcerer. We've got Creatrix as the cleric of Sophia. And we've got Shogun as some kind of indescript human samurai Bushido dude. Does anybody else have a concept they want to run with?
I'm still thinking about it.
What
So,
about
and
you?
it's kind of I'm open to pretty much anything. We're not stuck to the constraints of like the classes of D&D.
Like literally, as we probably have made clear by now, virtually anything you can imagine can easily be
Okay.
accommodated by the mechanics of the game. So the only challenge here is for you to decide what you want to be in, and then we can make it work in terms of the mechanics. So the only limitation here is imagination, creativity, and willingness to commit to an idea.
The only thing you need to know is rules as written. If you don't take magic as a career skill, if you don't take magic as a skill at the start of the game, you can't take it later. So you should be thinking, am I a magical character or not?
Right. Yeah. So you're either going to be a wizard or a sorcerer, or you're not. But
Yeah.
other than that, everything, like, all you need to be thinking about is creative. It has nothing to do with the rules, the game, or anything else. It's just, who do you want to be? Can you imagine that? What do you want to be?
I got a concept. So
Go ahead, Neil.
I'm gonna be a UFO.
An
I'm gonna be
alien or a UFO?
I'm gonna be a straight up alien
Alien.
from another planet, and I've come to the Earth on a quest seeking Atlantis and people of Atlantean descent
Well,
on
we're
a
not.
secret mission.
We're
That's
on
why
an
I'm there.
we're on an Earth-like planet, but it's not literally Earth. Is the thing.
Yeah. It's
Right.
it's a fantasy world that is not Earth. So the concept can still work, but
Yeah.
just to be clear, we're not on Earth. This is a D&D
As far as you know,
fantasy world.
but I know as the alien,
Mhm.
I know what this planet
Right.
is. Anyway, so I'm on this quest. I worked a lot of what I'm doing out as my storyline. I have certain psychic abilities. I carry a ray gun. I carry a little scanner, and I have clothing that has certain protective properties.
Right. So,
What
like
do
I
you
said,
think
I
about
mean,
What do you
go
think
ahead.
about the Shogun? Because I like parts of it, but I think he needs to retool it a little bit to make it more setting appropriate. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
most of it works. Like he can being from another planet, being a different species, I think is fine. But like it is very sci-fi, right?
Yeah. It would be better. It would be better to embrace, in general, that it's a fantasy setting, not a sci-fi setting. There's a certain appeal to the crossover and the fact that, yes, a crossover is totally possible. Like in D&D, there are other planets, there are beings from other planets, but it's a little bit of a double-edged sword to introduce, like, oh, I'm an alien with technology in a sort of sorcery world. There's something cool about it, but there's also a certain disadvantage to that. That being said, it's fairly easy to
I already worked
represent.
that out. There's certain
Yeah.
laws that I have to follow, like a prime directive. I can't use certain things on your planet because it's illegal, and I'll get arrested.
Well, right.
So I've
And
already covered. And the main reason I really want to do that is because I'm a sci-fi guy. I know all that stuff. I don't know any of this fantasy shit.
Huh.
well, the
I'm
fantasy shit is well within your ability to just visualize, right? Like, I'm a person in this situation. What would I do? Or, like, you don't need any special knowledge. It's like, you know. But that being said, in terms of the rules, it's fairly easy, right? You just create a new race called Gray Alien, if that's what you want to be, and then you just say that the stat changes are the same as for an elf. So maybe you get +2 to intelligence and -2 to constitution to represent that you are very intelligent with your big brain, but your body is fragile with your little body. And so you just change that to Gray Alien. The stat changes -2 strength, -2 constitution, +2 intelligence, whatever.
We can
And
make
then,
it work. We can make it work.
right. And then when it comes to technology, right, if you have a ray gun, right, that it's a little blaster gun, you just change that to like a wand of magic missiles with 20 charges, and you just change it to alien blaster gun with 20 charges, and it has the exact same effect as a wand of magic missiles. So, in terms of the rules, it can be done.
Yeah.
And yeah, in terms of the lore, it's not technically inconsistent because basically anything's on the table in D&D. It's a little bit of a like a, provocative or, experimental concept, but I think it's doable. It's totally up to Dude Missile basically if he
I would
exists or
say
not.
now that we've talked about it for a little bit, I think it's fine. It'll be a little weird because you have this high technology character like interacting with these people whose idea of high technology is like magical technology. But I think it could actually be like a fun dynamic because he would be like the outsider of the group who's like. So we're
I
so
think
we're
I think it's worth playing with. Yeah.
yeah. So we're I
It's
think
just
you're
a
good there.
character. It's a character close to my own personality, so I think I can really bring a lot to the table. Yeah, with
The only
myself with it.
question I would ask is do you envision your alien, which I'm envisioning is like a gray alien, do you envision it more like an elf or do you envision it more like a gnome? So
Oh, it's
a
more
gnome
like
is about 4 feet tall and like an elf is like 6 feet tall. So it's like would it be
I'm gonna look
tall gray or
like
a short
people.
gray?
It's gonna be a tall gray because I'm basically just like humans, but a little different.
Yeah, so I'd say elf works then, right? You're a thinner, spindly human shape, not like a 4 foot tall little gray like a gnome, but like
Right.
a tall, thin human that's maybe a little more fragile than a normal human, but maybe a little smarter.
Right. Yeah.
So
And
Nero,
I already got a quest line set up for my dude, and basically his thing is he's trying to reconnect to nature because his people are kind of lost out, hanging out in space all the time, and they're not really grounded. So that's like part of his quest is to ground himself back into this setting. And there's a bunch of little secrets that I'll reveal throughout the campaign of exactly why I'm there, what I'm doing, why I'm looking for these certain people with this bloodline. I think it'll be interesting. It'll be kind of fun to mix it up a little bit with some of that sci-fi stuff. I think I've never seen that in a campaign, which is mainly why I want to kind of. But
yeah, it sounds fun. I'm gonna send you the link to the books. There's just so you know, for specifically for you, Niram, I wouldn't worry about them right now because I'm gonna help you workshop your I'm gonna help you translate your character concept into mechanics, right? So
Yeah.
we'll figure out like what your species is and what their
Right.
stats are. But I'm just gonna send you these now. Like I've told this to everyone else, but I don't know if you were here. Like there's a lot of PDFs in there, and only 2 are necessary, and you don't even have to read all of those. It's just they're all just there for like additional character options.
Cool.
So if we were to just reciprocate or reiterate, we now have a, Eastern samurai human fighter. We have a cleric of Sophia, the goddess of wisdom. We have a alien from another planet who's like a gray, and we have like a Zinchian sorcerer. And those are our 4 characters. So does anybody else, did I forget one, or does anybody else have a character?
I am a hill dwarf named Haldar Frozen Boot, and I am a paladin.
Ooh, that's interesting. That's an
So
interesting one.
here's a question. So paladin's a holy warrior, right? So paladin is different than a fighter in that although both are combat classes, the paladin is sort of like a hybrid cleric fighter or a holy warrior concept. So my question is, what god or religious cause does your paladin follow, such that he is a paladin and not a fighter? Because a normal dwarf warrior would be a fighter, but if he's
Does
a
this
paladin,
need to be? Does this need to be like a real, like a part of the lore?
Well,
you
you can make it up, but the point
Yeah.
is, like, if you're calling yourself a paladin, like I'm calling myself a fighter because my character's not fighting for a god, right? He's just a warrior or he's a samurai. But if you're a paladin, it would be like you're a holy warrior. So my question is just like, what is your dwarf's concept of the holy cause or god that he serves?
He serves the light.
So maybe there's a dwarven god, right? Maybe there's a dwarven god who represents like everything that dwarves hold sacred, some kind of dwarven warrior god or
Yeah, like a
god of
dwarven
the light.
warrior, god of light, or something.
Right. Yeah, and you just serve that like you're like a holy, and you can make up the details of what that god's name is and blah blah blah, but you're a holy dwarven warrior who serves a dwarven god of goodness, basically. Well, there you go. Cool.
Now,
I'm but a simple hill dwarf.
no, I know Hermes is busy right now. Oh,
I mean, I can try to like give a basic description of a character.
well,
You're
the
not
basic,
bound to it in any way either, right? It's just
yeah.
brainstorming. So like feel free to spitball something and change it later. But if you have any kind of like idea, just like get it out there.
I just
Well-
want I just wanted to say I wanted to hit before we move on. Like I wanted to hit Hermes and I wanted to hit Kasheka. Kasheka played with us before, so I want to make sure if they're both interested in playing, we want to give them a chance to talk. Right?
I think this
I
is one
am.
thing Kashika should definitely get it. You should definitely get into this one. This would be a perfect
hear
one
me?
to play. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
We'll go with Hermes first though, because we brought them up first.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the limitations are, so I'm just gonna give a character and please help me adjust.
Yeah.
So, the backstory would be there is some dragon blood. I would prefer dragon blood if that's possible. If not, I can find some other species.
Totally possible.
But I was adopted, and my parents like taught me some sort of. There was actually one parent, so it was it's a father, right? I had one dad, and they raised me, and they taught me like I don't know some sort of fire magic shit that I was really naturally good at because I have dragon blood in me, and I am like a very free spirited individual. That my ultimate ideal is just absolute freedom, given the dragon flying in the skies stuff.
I like that.
And I mean, I don't know what else. I mean, I can give a description, name, blah blah blah.
Well, so first of all, you're playing a female character, I would assume.
Yeah, I would prefer to do that.
Yeah.
If that's not an issue, I mean,
Yeah, of
I
course
don't know.
not. Of course
No,
not.
no,
You
you
can
can-
literally
yeah.
whatever you want. So you'd be a female character with dragon blood, right? So here's a question for you. There are, and again, I'm just like, correct me if I'm wrong, dude, because I know it's like a specific subset of D&D. But in D&D, there's chromatic dragons and there are metallic dragons, and the metallic dragons are the good dragons, and the chromatic dragons are, for lack of a better word, the evil dragons. So the chromatic dragons are green, blue, red, black, and white, and the metallic dragons are gold, silver, bronze, copper, and brass. And so the question is, which do you see as being your ancestor, right? So let's say your great great grandfather was a dragon. Was he a red dragon? Was he a blue dragon? Was he a gold dragon? Was he a silver dragon?
I would like to step in here and say I don't know if we're gonna go with that specific lore, but you do bring up a good point. Like I think Hermes, you should think about like your dragon father or mother, like wherever your ancestry comes from. Like what were they like? Like
Right.
what's
Was
the
it an
lineage
evil?
coming from?
Were they an evil dragon? Were they a good dragon? Were they a dragon who is like, noble and wants to protect? Or were they like a red dragon who just wants to like have treasure, like because that'll affect
I have an
your
idea.
personality and stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so like the home that I had envisioned was like basically being isolated from society, being like raised by one parent on the mountains, right? Like cottage, far away, green, high altitude. You can see the clouds, at certain points. That kind of place. And the dragon was the defender of that mountain, of that area at some points.
So silver dragons are known, again, like you're saying, may not go with that lore, but traditionally silver dragons are like the defender dragons. each of the different colors has like a implication of their personality and so forth, and the defender protector archetype is usually the silver dragons. Just something to consider.
Yeah, whatever. Silver Dragon sounds cool as long as they're like fire. You know, they work
Like-
with fire. That's cool.
Well, silver dragons, I think, actually might breathe frost. So the two dragons that breathe fire are gold dragons and red dragons. So red dragons and gold dragons both breathe fire. But like again, like a red dragon represents like power, domination, tyranny, arrogance. Kind of a gold dragon would represent like wisdom, compassion, benevolence.
Yeah, let's go
This-
gold.
Like the red dragon is like Smog from like the Hobbit. If you remember, he sits on the pile of gold and he like burns the town. He's like the badass like bad red dragon. Whereas a gold dragon, they're like really ascended beings who like teach people moral lessons and like stuff like that. And then the silver dragon is like a protector dragon. They all have like personalities, right? So it's like a black dragon is like a very vindictive, venomous, like poisonous, acidic dragon. A blue dragon is like a whatever. They all have kind of like a
I like
connotation.
gold. Gold's
Yeah.
nice.
Well, gold is the ultimate dragon. They're the most powerful dragons, the most benevolent dragons. But if you're a gold dragon, then it's kind of like being sort of almost angelic as well, because like a gold dragon is like, and again, in traditional D&D, is like morally like a very high moral being. So
Cool.
if you had gold dragon blood, you would most likely be like a very compassionate, benevolent, good person who has
I
like
like that.
wisdom and compassion. Whereas if you had red dragon blood, you'd probably be like an arrogant, fiery, powerful, dynamic, aggressive, greedy kind of personality, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I do want to say like it's like multiple layers disconnected, so it's not like father, maybe like great grandfather. You know what I mean? Like I want it to be like relatively thin, not too thin, but not
Mm.
too thick. The blood.
Well, yeah, that makes sense if you're a sorcerer, because if the blood was too thick, you'd probably be, again, this is all my interpretation, but you'd probably be having like physical manifestations, like actually having scales, actually having draconic qualities. Whereas if it's a little more distant, then it's like you just have the magical powers because your blood is like 10 times diluted. It's like,
Awesome. Yeah.
One more thing.
Sure.
Just what do you see, like you've said your character has magic, right? That's one thing. But what do you see your character as being good at, right? So are they a combat person? Are they like a charmer? Are they like a social manipulator or like social character? Are they like a sneaky, like I'm gonna pick locks and pickpockets? Like
I'll
what is
give
your
an
character
idea.
good at?
I'll just give an idea of like the story that I thought of in the
Ah,
meantime.
okay.
So imagine like you're on a mountain, right? Like and you're raised and your father, whatever, dies, and you're just like your home is the mountain, you love it, you protect it. There really aren't many people there. Sometimes you go down to the village to get stuff, but you're basically living like a hermit or like a sage, like I don't know, that kind of life. You're really good with animals. So you can like ride animals and make friends with them like it's nothing. You're good with plants and like herbalism and stuff like that, perhaps, because you live
So-
on the mountains.
only thing is that all lends itself a lot more to druid as a class, right? So if you want to be a guy who's good with animals, with plants, with nature, with the mountains, like that's like very much druid. So you might want to consider being, and you could still have dragon blood and be a druid, but if that's more the element that you're into, that's like druidic magic.
Can druids do like fire magic though?
Yeah, because druids are like elementalists, right? They're like based on the elements of nature: fire, earth, air, water, right? Wind. Like, so fire is like, I would assume, totally within the domain of, because you could be a druid of fire, right? Like, it's a natural element. The point is that like druids are like naturalists, right? They like have a mystical communion with nature, right? With water, with air, with fire, with earth. So
Okay.
if that's what you want, to be able to talk to animals and control animals, and then that would be, in my opinion, would be more druidic magic.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of imagining like someone that's just like naturally as a human, like good with animals and stuff, not like in a magical way, but
You could also have like animal ken as like a, like you could have like just the skill of being good with animals and not necessarily magically. That's also
Yeah,
possible.
yeah. That's sort of what I was picturing when he was describing it. I wasn't really picturing a druid type character, you know?
Yeah, like just naturally due to like living in a nature environment, so you have acclimatized to that environment and become really good with animals and just animals can sense you. You know what I mean? Like in a good way. Horses can feel. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. A human, just a human that's really good with
Yeah.
animals.
So you would
And
be
there's
a human. You'd be a human, what, sorcerer? You think?
yeah. So there's like latent. So I am a sorcerer because my father taught me like the ways of magic and whatever. And it turned out that he was also like of a school of fire magic or some shit, and I had unusual talent in fire magic, although I normally never use that outside of like practice or whatever. But that is my hidden ability, like super fire magic.
Mhm. So you're like a fire sorcerer, dragon blood, who is also, because of his circumstance or
Her, yeah,
her circumstances, also really good with animals and nature and stuff.
yeah, exactly.
So
That's basically it.
the only thing I'd consider is it's optional, completely optional. There's pros and cons to it, but finding an image, like an artwork that you really like, can be hugely helpful because a picture is worth 1,000 words. But on the flip side, it limits you because then you're bound to this image. So just
I'm
consider,
fine with that. I
yeah.
have an
So
image in my head already.
yeah,
It's
right.
basically she has red, it's like scary red eyes, like it's unusual because of her dragon blood, and her hair is also red, like fire, very long.
Right.
She's relatively short, like 5'5", whatever,
Mhm.
and she's in her mid-20s.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then the
Okay.
only thing left to think of is, and again, sorry to interrupt, but like name, like what would your name be? And also,
I have a name,
what's the name?
Arya Fireborn.
Arya Fireborn. Very nice. So then the other thing to think is like, who are this is just what I recommend. Who are the people that are important? Like, do you have family? Do you have parents, children, husband, wife, like friends, allies, enemies, like, things like that.
I guess since she goes down to the village every now and then, she has like friends in the village, so like certain shopkeepers kind of are like mentors to her and stuff like that. So like she cares about the village, but she's an isolationist and basically lives on her own most of the time.
She doesn't necessarily have like people that are very closely tied,
The
father,
father
mother,
died.
husband, wife, whatever. Yeah.
The father died and she's alone.
And the name is what again? Arya Fireborn?
Yes. And personality traits, like being sincere, almost like autistically sincere, and like an ideal, definitely freedom. Freedom is like the ultimate, like her heart. One thing she cannot have is chains. Like any restrictions, blah blah blah, not good. Doesn't work with her. Her flaw, she's extremely rash and impulsive sometimes, and yeah, she's rather compassionate, although she can be vengeful too. There we go.
Cool. I like it. So do you have a name for your character creatrix, or at least an idea?
Yeah, I'll go by V, and the
V.
full form will be Vina
It,
Versa Virtuosa.
it's funny to me because I'm reading a book, and the main character is the Magos from the Adeptus Mechanicus, and I guess they have some kind of like post-gender thing, so they call themselves, instead of he or she, they call themselves V or Viz.
Oh,
Which I'm not saying is necessarily related, but I just thought it was interesting. It's like they're like, I'm not he or she, I'm V or Viz. That was interesting.
okay.
But yeah, so okay, so your name is what? V?
V, yeah, Vina.
Okay. So we got Vina, we got Arya. My character doesn't have a name yet. Spiridio will have to do for now. Crimson, do you have any thoughts about your character, or Kashika?
I'd
We
say
also have Niram as the alien character.
yeah. I would say let's Crim's already got a chance, so we'll go to him second. Kashika, do you have any? Would you like, first off, would you like to play with us? And second off, if you would like to play, do you have any idea for what kind of character you'd like to play?
I'm just starting to formulate it in my mind, and yes, I would like to play. But unfortunately, I joined in this whole thing a little later, so I don't know any of the lore and all that stuff or whatever you guys are deciding. So I'm gonna try to catch up on that before I do
Okay.
any kind of decisions.
Okay.
But I'm thinking along the lines of like an airbender type of character that likes to use martial arts and ki.
Oh,
So-
like a sort of a like magical monk type, like an awakened monk type character.
Yeah.
I was gonna say there is a class in D&D called Monk, which is entirely based on like enlightenment and chakras and meditation and martial arts and yoga and like all that. And there's also a class called Scion, which is like telepathic, psychic, mental power, psychic, third eye open, chakra, whatever. So either of those are possibilities for like an airbender type character. Could either be like a monk or it could be like a Scion, potentially.
Yeah. So are you guys sticking? I know you may have answered this already, so maybe it would be better if I just give you
Well,
my
go ahead,
full
go ahead.
description after I've listened to the beginning of this thing, the podcast.
Would you like me to send you the books now? The link to the books?
Is there any channel that's created for it?
No, because I'm sharing them off my own Google Drive, so I'm sending them to people individually.
Okay. Sure.
It's okay.
Yes, please.
So
So are we
it's-
going to be sticking to that particular lore, whatever's in the books?
Not in terms of theme, yes. In terms of literal lore, no. Right? So it's kind of just going to be swords and sorcery, fantasy, elves and wizards and knights and castles and dragons sort of stuff. But don't worry about the lore. And also, I hate to be redundant because everyone's heard me say this multiple times, but just so you know, there's a bunch of books in here. Only 2 of them are necessary, and like with Mage, you don't have to read the whole book. There's just the extra
Okay.
ones are just in there for character additional character options, right?
Okay. So
don't
are
worry-
there sheets that we're going to be filling in? to
Yeah,
give us the point values. Okay.
I can send you the sheet. I can send you the sheet right now. Is that it? Yeah. Okay. One sec. I'm gonna just DM to you the sheet. So the rules for character, the 2 main books you're gonna want are what's the one that's called the core rule book, core rules, and the one called Realms of Tyranoth, and then all the other ones are like additional character options. And keep in mind, that if when you well, I'll explain some more in a bit. We're gonna move on to Crimson if you have nothing left
Okay.
to say about what your
Sure.
character. Do you have anything else to add about your
No, I'm
character? Okay, Crimson, have you thought of anything?
Yeah. So I think I want to be like a chromatic dragon knight shadow assassin. So basically, I am like a shadow assassin who had a hard life as a child, growing up poor on the streets as an orphan. But now that I'm in my mid-20s and coming into my coming into my 30s, I've been starting to discover that I am actually a chromatic dragon that is waking up inside of its own dream.
Now, like,
And I'm basically, my character's combat profile is like a rogue. I'm like a shadow
rogue?
assassin.
Okay,
Well,
so you're like
yeah.
you're not going to be taking a lot. You're going to be not taking a lot of big hits. You're mostly sneaking around, backstabbing,
Yeah.
like poisoning.
I'm gonna
Okay.
like fucking shadow step and like eviscerate people, dude.
Right.
And I'm gonna
Uh,
sneak
But you're
around. I'm gonna
also
cast
saying
like
that
a
your
shield
character-
of invisibility around the party, like the kind of things like that. It's basically, I'm gonna take a stance of a rogue, but I want to develop as my character grows, stepping away from being a rogue, coming into like the virtue and teamwork of what it is to be part of a group as this awakening chromatic dragon, and then step into becoming more of like a dual wielding dragon knight. But I'm going to start as like a kind of weak and yet awakening shadow assassin who was an orphan.
So I think the concept of like a rogue and a shadow assassin is really cool. The only thing I will mention is if you are a awakening dragon, then you have two members in a party that's relatively small who are both dragon blooded or or dragon related, which is
Mm.
okay. But statistically, you know, like this would be a very rare phenomenon. So it's kind of like,
Oh, for sure. I
li-
think we can make it all tie in together, though. You know what I mean? If we all
Right.
have this like
yeah,
connection to
I'm
dragon
not
lineages.
not saying
My
not
my past is a
not to do
mystery
it.
because my parents gave me up at birth. I grew up in like a Christian orphanage. Or I don't know, like that that's a stretch because it's D&D, but still, something like that sounds cool.
So
I'll work on developing it more.
right. So now that we've sort of gone around the table, unless I guess I'll ask just out of thoroughness, Truth Seeker, are you interested in playing? Because you've been in here for a while.
So to phrase
Okay.
it differently, because I don't think Truth Seeker is going to answer, can we agree that Niram, Crimson, Kasheka, Creatrix, Hermes, and
Egg based.
Egg Based will be playing, and Dude Missile will be the Dungeon Master, in which case we have a very solid roster and everything we need to move forward. And it seems to me that we have all the characters. So we've got Creatrix as a cleric of Sophia. We've got Crimson as a quote unquote shadow assassin rogue. We've got Niram as an alien, and we can work out the details of what class works. I am inclined to think wizard or scion would make a lot of sense for an alien.
Yeah.
Scion honestly would even make more sense than wizard. Like make him like a psychic where he just has like alien mind powers and make him a scion.
Well, in the set of books that I have given everyone the links to, there is a supplement on PSI. So
Right.
Can
So
you
I
also
would say there's two
shoot me the link?
possibilities. Like make them the alien a wizard where he has mental mind powers that manifest as magic spells, or make him a scion. But I think scion works even better, where it's like telepathy, telekinesis, like
I gotta
mind
wait.
powers.
One sec. You guys keep discussing. I just gotta go to the bathroom real quick. But
And
once
Mike,
we're
so we got a fighter, we've got a dwarven paladin if Michael plays, we've got a rogue, we've got a cleric, we've got a sorcerer, maybe two sorcerers, I guess. Egg based and Hermes are both sorcerers, I think.
A sorcerer and a sorceress? Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and you can be totally different. Sorcerers, you have totally different spells, totally different reasons why you're a sorcerer, totally different ways that you do it. But yeah, it's cool. So we got a fighter, a paladin, two sorcerers, a cleric, and a rogue, and an alien, whatever that is. Maybe a scion.
And Dude Missile, if you could
I'm back.
you shoot me the link for the
Oh, the
character
book?
sheet? Dude Missile.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, just give me the link to the resources that you're using. Just shoot me
Okay.
a DM, and like if you're using a character sheet, just like link me like a blank character sheet so I can like
So
fiddle
we
and
have
fuck on it and doodle it
yeah,
or whatever.
we have a form fillable one. The only problem with the form fillable one is it doesn't really have any spaces for custom skills, but we can figure that out as we go. So I'll just send you the form fillable one.
That's cool.
So that's
Like I
oh,
could even take that, put it into Photoshop, and I could just like fucking make it a little different for everybody if you want.
yeah. That's the sheet, but let me give you the link to the books. Again, no, I won't say it again. I said it's like 5 times already. These are all
the
the
more
books.
that I'm trying to like. Okay.
The main books are the core rule book and the Realms of Tyranoth. Everything else is like additional character options, so don't feel you need to read it all.
Okay.
So now that we've gone around the table, I was wondering, Shogun, if I should maybe give like a before we end off here, if I should give like a quick rundown of how the character creation process works.
Yeah, anything you feel is appropriate, my friend.
Okay.
I think we've made some good progress in getting the concepts to whatever else you think.
So basically the rules for creating characters are in the core rule book, and then the sort of classes we're going to be the careers as they're called in this game are in the Realms of Tyranoth book, right? So hang on, I'm just trying to find it. Yeah, so basically here's how it plays out. So first thing you're gonna do is what we've already just done here, right? We've figured out what the character concept is. Okay, so we've already done that, right? Number 2 is you're gonna select your archetype or species. So there's some additional archetypes in the core rulebook, and species and archetype are the same thing, but basically an archetype would be like, oh, you could be like, it's basically like species, except it's like, oh, working, a manual laborer or an aristocrat human, right? They're both humans, but they have different stats. So you can select between those if you really want to be a human and you don't like the normal human option. But that's basically it. You're going to select a character, archetype, or species, right? Now, that archetype is going to come with, hang on. That archetype is basically going to come with your base stats. So the base stats in this game are brawn, which is like your physical strength and your endurance, agility, so like your dexterity, your ability to move nimbly and precisely, intellect, self-explanatory, cunning, self-explanatory, willpower, self-explanatory, and presence. Presence is sort of like your charm. It's your like social presence in a scene, right? So if you want to be like a sort of manipulator or sort of a charmer or something like that, that would be your presence, right? So your archetype is gonna determine your base starting attributes, your base starting characteristics, and then you fill those in. Next off, after you've done that, you choose a career, and your career is going to be like your class. And this is where I have to say, if you look through all the list of careers and you can't find one that's exactly what you're looking for, let me know, because making a new career is like it'll take me like 2 minutes to just stat one out for you. The game is sort of made for that to be an option. So like career, and basically you're going to choose a career or make your own career with my help, and that's going to give you eight what are called career skills, right? So the difference between career skills and non-career skills is career skills are cheaper to level up with experience points that you'll get as we play, right? Whereas non-career skills cost more. So it'll be easier to become better. It'll require less experience points to become better at your career skills. So you should think of them as like your main skills, right? So your career will give you 8 of those, and then you're gonna mark those on the character sheet. There should be a little box that says career, and so you're gonna mark all your career skills, and then after that, you're going to choose 4 of those career skills, and you're gonna put them up to level 1. So you get 8 skills, and you get to 4 of them. You get to put up 1 level. After that is basically the last real main thing you have to do, and that's your archetype or your species will give you an amount of starting experience points, right? And here's the very important thing I have to really nail into you guys here. You can spend at character creation, you can spend your XP on 3 things. After character creation, you can only spend them on 2 different things. So the things you can spend them on in character creation is characteristics, skills, and talents. After character creation, you can only buy skills and talents. So whatever your characteristics are at the end of this character creation, that's basically what they're going to be for most of the game. You can get them all. You can get a couple of them up by 1 point, like way into the late game. But if you finish making your character and you've got a 3 brawn, you've basically got a 3 brawn, right? So what is recommended is that you spend as many experience points as you can upgrading your characteristics, and when you can't do that anymore, then you buy some skills and talents. Like, does everyone understand that?
I think so.
Right.
I
So-
plan on listening to the podcast again.
Well,
and what I think again, it would be great is if me and Dude Missile do a one-on-one play session so that other people can listen and hear and understand how the game works by playing. Because I played D&D, I've been a player, I've been a dungeon master. So we'll play one little session. This is just my suggestion, and then people who are still unsure how this actually works can listen and understand.
I'll
But-
need to
Yes,
install
please.
a dice bot. Either that. or
We already have a dice spot.
No, I need a dice spot for this specific game.
Okay, all right. Again, well, just send that to Ralph and it
Yeah.
can be easily set up.
Will you
So-
be creating a channel for this?
Yeah, we'll always have a special text and voice channel for an RPG game. So when we play in a server RPG game, we're going to have a dedicated voice channel and a dedicated text channel. And we'll have a dice roll bot that's integrated with the text channel so that we can post our sources, post our images, post our characters, post our character sheets, and make our rolls all within one channel where everybody can see it. And
Okay.
we'll be doing all of our voice discussion, which is most of the game, in a voice channel, which will be called, D&D or whatever Dude Missile wants to call the campaign. But yeah.
Right. So back to the last couple steps. So the last couple steps are your determining your derived attributes. So this would be your health points, which are called your wound threshold, your strain threshold. Strain threshold is like stun damage, so like non-lethal damage. So if you had like say a taser, that would damage your strain but not your wound. And so basically, depending on your archetype or species, you're going to have a starting wound threshold, and then you add your brawn onto that. Similarly, depending on your species, you'll have a starting strain threshold, and then you will add your willpower onto that, and that'll be those two stats. And then there is soak, and soak is basically a value. It's a stat that it's equal to your brawn, and what it is it's a value that anytime you take damage, your soak is like a number you remove for it. So if you have 3 brawn, you'd have 3 soak, which means if you took 5 damage, 3 removed from 5 means you only took 2 damage. Whereas
But
defense
that's
is
World of Darkness. That's World of Darkness rules, isn't it? So
no. That's how this works in it.
Okay,
That's how
alright.
this works in this game.
Gotcha.
So there's the only other the final derived stat is defense, right? Which you don't really don't worry about defense because it basically generally only comes from armor. There's no like stat that gets it up. But defense will when you're rolling your dice, defense will add dice, negative dice against someone trying to attack you. So if you have defense, it means that the roll to hit you is actually more difficult. I'll get into specifics when me and Shogun are playing, because I'll have to show him a little bit about how the dice system works, but it's not complicated. And then this second to last part is optional. So on the character sheet, you have what are called your what are they called here? You're called your character motivations, and you don't have to do this, but it can be a good exercise. So you have your strength, which is what is like a strong part of your character's personality. Your flaw, which is a weak part of your character's personality. Your desire, which is the goal they're trying to achieve, and their fear, which is something they're worried about, right? You don't have to do these; they have no mechanical implication, but I would recommend doing them because they'll help you sort of nail down more better how to think how to role play your character, but they're not necessarily. And so the final step is you choose gear, and you choose gear, and you fill out on the character sheet. There's on the second page there'll be stuff like gender, age, height, build, hair, eyes. Just fill in those whatever you want. They're not mechanically they don't imply any mechanics, so just fill out those however you want. And then you buy gear. So depending on your career, you will get an amount of starting gear. If you choose one of the pre-built careers, you'll get a certain amount of starting gear, and then you'll get a certain amount of money. If you end up deciding to go the custom career route, just talk to me. I will tell you I'll tell you what kind of starting gear we can give you. But in general, you'll get some starting gear that you'll start with, and you get a little bit of money. And after that, your character is done.
Right. And so in the case of my character's equipment, for the reasons that I posted to you, is going to be a bit different. So
Yeah.
in a normal game, people are going to be trying to get better and better equipment and upgrade their equipment. For my character, for the reasons that I said, he has to maintain his existing equipment.
Right.
That's like part of his character. He cannot change his weapons or his arm or anything. So you know, and like I said, I think, you know, you can work with me on like the little bit of leeway in terms of what somewhat supernatural abilities he might have while
Yeah.
essentially being a human fighter in terms of
Um,
character and race and class.
Now, just so you know, just so everyone is aware, I mean, Shogun, you obviously know this, but the core rule, if you've forgotten anything I said about character creation, all you need is the core rule book, and there's the whole chapter in the core rule book about creating characters. Right? It'll run you through every single thing you need to do, all those steps I just said. Whereas Tyranoth is where you'll get your careers and your races, and then the other books are just additional races and some additional abilities. But yeah, if you just go through the core rulebook, it'll guide you step by step through how to fill out the sheet. Yeah, if there's anything the book doesn't cover as far as something you want about your character, just let me know and we can work that out. Like sort of like Shogun, because he has some special things going on with his swords, basically. So we
Yeah.
have to-
So my other characters may be trying to increase their gear over time. My character must not lose his gear and must
Yeah.
always use the same gear. But that's just something the GM understands. So
Yeah.
cool. I think we
Well,
made a
cool.
lot of progress here.
Yeah, we did pretty good.
Can I ask a question?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Can I use the same character as the last game?
No, because it's a different system.
You can certainly take the same concepts and try to modify it and make it workable in this one. But if I remember correctly, your last character was like a time traveler and so on and so forth. I really don't think that will work well, especially since we already have a character with Niram who's already kind of bending the line by being like an alien with technology. I really don't think we want like a time traveling mage from the 20th century. Like it would be much better to embrace the swords and sorcery and be something within the realm of that domain. So cleric, wizard, druid, human, fighter, warrior, archer, mage, priestess. You know, there's so many possibilities. But being like a time traveling 21st century mage is just gonna break the setting we're playing in. Like we're already accommodating an alien from outer space, and I just think in my personal opinion, an additional character who doesn't fit the setting is going to be too much.
Okay, so the information about the setting that we're going to be playing in, is in the books that beautiful dude Missile you sent me.
Well,
Is it
literally,
correct?
like surely, and I say this, but like surely you know what fantasy refers to, right? Like dragons,
But
unicorns.
you also mentioned a
magic.
world that's not Earth, so I'm wondering if that
It
setting
isn't
is
Earth.
described
No,
in the
it isn't
books.
Earth. That's my point. It's a fantasy setting. So if you're familiar with
Right.
Dungeons and Dragons, if you're familiar with World of Warcraft, if you're familiar with Lord of the Rings, if you're familiar with Warhammer Fantasy, if you're familiar with any setting in which there are dwarves and elves and wizards and warriors and swords and sorcery, then you understand this world. But it's not a world where you're going to have a cell phone and a credit card and a gun and a car. It's a world where you're going to have a magical staff and a spirit bag and a spirit companion and a unicorn that you ride. But no, you're not going to have an F-16. You're not going to have a laptop, right?
Okay, so no modern technology.
Exactly.
Because I'm aware of many fantasy worlds that have all sorts of things. I just don't know which specific ones you're choosing
Like
for
I
this.
said, fantasy is generally a genre. Or you have science fiction and you have fantasy. So in fantasy, you have swords, sorcery, magic, wizards, divine magic, dragons, gods, goddesses, monsters, right? And then you have science fiction where you have spaceships, lasers, computers, technology, robots. We're playing in the fantasy setting. So the fantasy setting encompasses almost anything, but it doesn't encompass, oh, I'm a hacker who has a laptop and an M16 pistol. No, like that's not the setting.
So where can I post something in the announcements? Can I just post the character sheet in the announcements, because I can't see another good place to post it?
Well, you could post it in the announcements, but I would probably recommend posting it in a channel relevant to this game for only those who are playing this game.
Okay.
I think anybody who's Marshall should be able to create a new channel. Which
Right. Okay. I'm gonna put it underneath. I'm gonna put it like right above. I'm gonna make a new category,
Yeah, like ideally make 2 channels. Make a text channel and a voice channel and call them D&D or D&D campaign or Dungeons and Dragons. And then we should have a voice channel and a text channel, and everything relevant should be posted in the text channel, and the conversation should happen in the voice channel.
Okay. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make I'm gonna make a voice channel. And I'm going to make a text channel, and I'm going to make an additional text channel just for handouts, just a place where I can post like the character sheet, the link to the books, and it's not a channel for chatting, it's just for those links. Is that okay?
Yep.
I'm excited.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be a total blast. I love being a player because it's like I'm usually the DM or the storyteller, which I like as well. But being a player is super fun. And it sounds like we got a lot of people who are willing to play, and yeah, I'm stoked.
Oh my god, dude! I installed Star Citizen in the meantime, just because it's free. Wanted to see how my game would perform. And the chat, dude, is so toxic. One sec.
Really? It's honestly like one thing I like about the game is that the community is really, really positive. Like when it comes to like gaming communities, I've found the Star Citizen to be like the most positive, most benevolent community I've ever seen in like any game. I'm not saying there isn't toxicity that happens, but like on average, these are like the greatest like gamers ever. Like it's crazy.
I'm streaming. I think it's because I chose the free fly version where like, there's like no consequence, the simulation one.
Right.
Anyways, just check it out and see.
Alright, I'll take a look. But yeah, that's like one thing that's kept me in the game is like the game is hard, but the people are so cool that it's like totally worth persisting in because they'll help you out. But
Okay, so I've made a category.
oh shit, we're still recording. We should probably
Yeah,
stop
let's
recording.
wait. Just let me wrap this up real quick. So, just for anyone who might listen to this later and be interested. So we have this new category in the server called Genesis Realms of Terranoth. There is a channel in there called Handouts, and there you can get the character sheet. It's form fillable. You can fill it out on a phone. You can fill it out on a computer, and then a link to all the books that are usable for this game.
Beautiful.
And
so if I can summarize, so
yep.
Dude Missile will be the dungeon master. The setting will be a modified version of Dungeons and Dragons through the Genesis rule system. And the current characters are Shiryo, the Asian-inspired samurai fighter with a mysterious past. Crimson, the shadow assassin of some kind. Creatrix, the cleric or priestess of Sophia. Niram, an alien from another planet. And am I forgetting anybody? Hermes is going to be Area Fireborn, and she is going to be a sorceress with dragon blood, and then Eggbase is going to be a Zinchian sorcerer. So
did you mention me?
what was your character concept, Kashika? I don't remember yours.
Like an airbending monk.
I didn't choose a name yet. I still have to read through all that stuff, but yeah.
Well, but what is your concept? Like, what, you're going to be a monk, like an elemental monk or martial artist, or what?
Yeah, exactly. So, that's what my last character was. It just so happened that she popped out of the future. That's all. But I'm going to work on that.
Yeah, and you can totally have it as part of your personal, what we call headcanon, that your character is the same character who exists in multiple dimensions, and pops out in the D&D world and pops out in the world. Like that can be totally part of your like meta headcanon. But in terms of the game, it would be better to situate yourself within the environment that exists, which is like you were born and raised in some part of this fantasy world, and but if it's important to you that you'll be time traveler from another dimension, then that's up to Dude Missile if he wants to accommodate that or not. But
yeah, no, I'm good with that. Would you be able to, beautiful Dude Missile? Would you be able to like ping me in the channel you just created, because I can't find it.
Oh yeah, I'll do that now.
The other thing we could do is if someone wants to do the work, you can create a special role or rank that is, D&D
Role
player,
player.
and then we can assign
Yeah.
it to everybody and make it pingable. And that way, when we want to play, you can just ping the people who have signed up to play the game and say, "Hey, we're starting in tomorrow, or we're starting in 30 minutes."
Okay. I'm gonna ping you, Kashika. But yeah, we should make a role for. I was thinking that earlier that we should have a role. That's how I do it in my own server. I have a role for
Yeah,
everyone
and that's how
who's
we've done it
in the
before.
game.
So great, wonderful. Thank you everybody who's agreed to play and made a character, and thank you especially to Dude Missile for being the DM. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm ready to play anytime, and also I do think it could be cool to do like a one-on-one session with me and you, so we can kind of hammer out the mechanics and practice how it works, and then other people who aren't familiar can listen and be like, "Oh, I get it," how it works. So whenever you want to do that, just let me know. I'm
Yeah. I would say just do up your sheet, and then we can figure out together as a starting point, like where your character's at, and then we can go from there. You know.
okay.
But
Sounds great.
I think it would help if we did like a little short little thing with you and me, because then we can that can be like almost like a tutorial for anyone who's not quite clear on how it works. I can introduce, because you've never played this game, so you don't know how the dice mechanic works. But
Right.
if we run through with you real quick, we can sort of establish that.
I found that extremely helpful in past campaigns that I've run. Doing each individual character with their own little like introductory session really adds like a level of investment and engagement, and like I really like doing that. Like if I'm going to run a campaign with 6 people, I like to have like a one-on-one with each of the 6 people and then bring them together. It just like adds like a level of background and reality, you know. But
Beautiful
that's
dude. So can you create a category for those two? Because they're just under suggested and at the very top of all of
They're
them.
in a category.
Are they?
Yeah, the
So,
category is called
can you put a link? Like, what's the name of the channel that you just created? Is it Dungeons and Dragons?
handouts.
Well, why would you call it Handouts? Change the name to Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh no,
Yeah, what I
there's
see.
Genesis Game Chat and Genesis Game Room, which is the voice channel, and then there's Handouts, which is where I put the links for things you need. That way
Yeah,
they
but
don't
they
get
don't have
lost in like the,
they don't have their own category. They're just under, like, I see the very top of the of the server. It says events. Below that says browse channels. Below that says suggested, and then you've
Well,
got Jen's
I just
game.
put a
and
I just put a link to it in general chat, so you'll see there it says Genesis Game Chat. So please post all character and D&D game related info and images in this channel. So Hermes said this is how he wants his character to look like. Perfect. Post that picture in that channel, and we'll all start accumulating our character sheets, our images, our thoughts about our character, anything. Just throw it in that channel, and then when we actually play, we'll use the voice channel. But
yeah.
for now, accumulate all your resources, whether it just be thoughts, feelings, ideas, images, concepts. Just go ahead and throw that in the Genesis Game Chat. So I'll just go ahead and I'll make my first post here. My character is an Eastern style human fighter slash samurai with a mysterious past who never removes his mask
while you're
and
doing that,
armor.
Shogun, I'd just like to point out to beautiful dude Missile. I put in just in the this VC's chat
Oh yeah.
the image of what I'm talking about, so you'll understand what I'm talking about. It does not show in a category.
That's because you're
It doesn't need to be in a category. You just have to have access to the channel. So if you're looking for the channel, you can either choose it at the top, or you can just make a link for yourself at any time, or you can click the link that I posted, or you can scroll down.
Oh, I could see them. It's at the very top of the server channels, and I thought maybe you wanted to put it somewhere else in its own category.
No, see, that's the suggested channel. So that's like channels that are being suggested to you. The actual place it's organized in the server is lower down. It's near it's I think right above World of Darkness. That old channel, if you remember that where that is, it's it's in a category above that.
Yeah, I see that. And then when you pinged me, it just the only mention of me that showed up was at the very top. That's why I'm talking about the very top right now.
Right. Okay. And just so we're clear, if anyone has trouble making a character, if you can't find a pre-written career that has the skills you want, like just let me know and we can work that out. Anyone who needs help making their character, just let me know and I'll get you sorted.
Yeah, and I'm posting my character description. All right, I posted my little description there. I'm not going to use an image or an artwork for my character, but you know.
Here, one sec, Kashake. I'm sending you a screenshot. Oh wait, sorry, no, that's not it. It's right. Oh wait, is it? Hang on.
Yeah, it's not showing up. That's my point. I don't bring up things for no reason, right?
No, but that's the weird. Here's the weird thing for me, Kashake. It's showing up on my end, and that's why I'm confused here.
Maybe it's allowing access to certain members.
Yeah, maybe the permissions are off.
Yep.
Here, let me try one more time. Okay, this time it worked. You see that? Hello?
I'm looking. Are you saying, did you see that because of the screen capture that you just sent, or because
Yeah,
of
yeah.
where I'm supposed to be looking?
Look in this voice channel chat, the text stream.
Okay,
There's
so
a
see above
screenshot of
that.
where. Yeah, so that's where it should be. If it's not, I imagine probably the permissions are not
It is
configured.
not. Yeah. So I
Okay,
guess that's
well, we'll
something
have.
that can be worked on later.
Yeah, it could be. Does anyone else see it?
See what?
Shogun, I think the Genesis
So
category.
I created the channel in the general chat. If you look, I just typed hashtag Genesis Game Chat. That's all you need to do. If you're ever looking for any channel, whatever it is, all you do is go to general chat. You type hashtag. If I'm looking for Apocalypse Watch, I type Apocalypse Watch. I press enter. I've just created a hyperlink. I click that. I go to the channel. So there's no difficulty at all in finding a channel. You just type in hashtag whatever channel you're looking for, and you'll create your own automatic link directly to that channel. So there's no confusion.
So we need
So
the name of the channel then, right?
if you're looking for a channel, you just type in hashtag in the name of the channel, you press enter. If I'm looking for introduce yourself, I press enter, I click on that link, you look in general chat, it'll bring me right to that channel. So whatever you're looking for, you just make your own link and boom, you're there. So it's never
Let's
gonna be.
let's cut the recording here.
Okay.
'Cause this
Well,
is
thank
just
you,
like weird.
everybody. Good job. Yeah, no, this is all good. Thank you, everybody. Good job. Thank you, Dude Missile. Thank you, everybody who wants to play. And I look forward to the game. And that being said, find us on the Temple Mount Discord server, YouTube, BitChute, Temple Mount Podcast, Temple Mount Official Roundtable Podcast, etc. Good night. God bless. Bye.